Good morning. Thank you for joining our workshop today, the last Saturday in October, as we move towards the elections next week, or the voting next week. So it's important that we pay attention today. We're going to be talking about well-being, and that well-being will involve a lot of the different things that we'll be addressing, especially during these stressful times. So my name is Charles Sine. I'm the CEO of Anti-Fragility Health. Welcome you to our workshop series. We've been off for some time, so just as a reminder, we run a couple of series during the week. I run one with conversations with Dr. Johnson. He's our medical director for the clinic. I also run one where I just give a prelude sometimes for the workshop that's coming up. I also run one with my daughter. We call Chit Chats with Dad. And a couple of other people run some other workshops with some clinicians here during the week. So we have a very busy, informative schedule on our Facebook and YouTube pages. So if you join us, you'll find some very interesting opportunities to learn, to ask questions, and to participate. So our objective in running these workshops is, number one, to generate curiosity and therefore knowledge, which is really important for you to take responsibility and be accountable for your health. The first two things that drive us to action and habit are curiosity and knowledge. If you're not curious, you will not get the right knowledge. And you read the right knowledge to take the right action. And once you take the right action repeatedly, you build a habit. That's the formula for life. If you're not curious, the knowledge you have is not relevant, because the knowledge must feed the curiosity. That's why many people who discover and create new business models are driven by curiosity. And what drives curiosity? It's really about solving problems. And so at the core of life and innovation is to solve problems. As you know, we all have problems about our health and other things, but we focus here around health. So these workshops will generate questions, and you want to solve those questions. So it raises your curiosity. If you don't have curiosity, go find it. If you're not curious, it means you're dead. Curiosity is an essential part of life. And that curiosity is going to drive you to acquire knowledge, not through gossip. When we talk about knowledge, we mean factual knowledge, not knowledge that comes from things you hear from other people that are not credible. The things that you hear here, you can always go refer. We're doing a lot of research to bring this information to you. So when you get that knowledge, then you can take action. Action is a very challenging issue, right? Because it sounds very easy to talk about knowledge, but not a lot of actions. It's not easy to take action. It's like people say, exercise for 45 minutes every day. Less than 10% of people do that. Why? Because it's not easy to exercise even for 45 minutes every day. So, but if you don't do it, there's a price to pay. And then it becomes a habit. So to form the right habits for success, is very challenging, so that you can be responsible and accountable for your health. So today we're going to talk about well-being. I use the word well-being because well-being is also part of the language that we've been using, which is really about health span and lifespan, or the big word that everybody uses, longevity. So well-being is that we want to live a long and healthy life. And to do that, there are four principal areas that you need to focus on. Number one is nutrition. All of us have a different nutritional requirements architecture, right? So just because your friend eats avocado and it works for them doesn't mean it works for you. You need to find from your genetics and your biochemistry what is that nutritional architecture that works for you, especially based on the environment that you are, your genetic architecture, and your age and gender. So those are all critical factors that are going to drive what your nutritional needs are going to be. And they change over time, and they change by season. So it is really important that you understand that nutritional biochemistry. Then there is the emotional wellness, right? Emotional wellness, especially at this time of stress, it's very challenging to really manage our emotions, because our emotions are driven by four things: our perception of what is actually happening. So what is happening is not what stresses us. It is our reaction to what is happening that stresses us, right? I give the example to my children all the time. If somebody died and you don't know them, you really don't worry. But if somebody died and it was your sister, the feelings you have about it are different. And it is because of how you are reacting to that death. It's not because that death is so amazing. Everybody dies, right? So it's really important that we understand that when we're stressed, we are the ones who are responding to what is happening. What is happening is not stressful. It is our response to it that is stressful. The second area of the emotional issues or stress has to do with sleep. One of the big things that we teach is that sleep is really fundamental to life. And so if you don't sleep well, or you have problems with sleep, there is nothing like 4 hours 6 hours is enough for me. No, you need to sleep for 8 hours. And within those 8 hours, you need to have about 2 hours of REM and 2 hours of non-REM. Why? There are critical periods in which the body resets and repairs and regenerates the architecture. If you don't do that, you're going to miss out of that. And you don't want to get to sleep with medication. You want to use natural substances that allow you to sleep properly. The third area is inflammation. You know, we talk a lot about inflammation being at the core of most chronic illnesses, and therefore it is really important that you reduce your inflammatory signals. And we have a lot of supplements like omega and SPM and other things that help with GI replenish, that help reduce the most critical area for inflammatory signals, which is our gut architecture. That is where most of the inflammatory signals are going on. You may not feel the pain, but the inflammation is there, it's going on. We tend to associate pain with inflammation, but there's a lot of inflammation that doesn't have pain, and therefore we need to be mindful to them. The last one is the stress from sugar. The sugar causes stress to the body with regard to our insulin resistant or insulin response to taking sugar out of the bloodstream. And therefore, for people who exercise and build muscle, they are much better equipped in removing sugar out of the bloodstream. It doesn't mean you eat sugar, whether you eat fruits or you eat carbohydrates, they all are converted at some point into sugar in the bloodstream. And so those are very important things. The third area is environmental wellness. Environmental wellness is critical because of everything that we need to survive comes from outside. The sun, the air, the water, and the food. All those things come to us in some levels of contamination, right? You cannot stay in the sun too long because you're going to get sunburned, and that's very dangerous for you. The air that we breathe is really polluted. Therefore, you need to ensure that you get good quality air, but also clean the toxicity that's inside of you. The food and the water that also comes with a lot of toxic elements, heavy metals and mold and bacteria and other things. We were having a conversation the other day about coffee. Dr. Yi has been purchasing some new coffee that doesn't have mold. And so it's very interesting that people who love coffee have been drinking coffee. They buy cheap coffee and they are getting all that mold inside of them. And mold is very dangerous because what does mold do when it gets into you? It goes and hides in the organs. And it is really at the source, including heavy metals, of really causing cancer and other things. Our physical wellness, one of the most important things, as we know, most people die in their above 70, 80, 90 from falling. They either die from falling or they get pneumonia, right? So think about it. Our physical architecture and our immune system are very important things. So having a strong stamina, balance, flexibility are very important attributes for you to live a healthy life. Therefore, exercise, there is no excuse for it. We have to exercise. So those four things define what we call nutritional, overall well-being. They're the four areas of wellness. But ultimately, most people are not well, right? There's something that's always going on with us. We're human beings. We live in an imperfect world. None of us is perfect with what we eat, nutritional, with our emotions, no stress, with a clean environment. We don't live in a pure oxygen environment, and most of us don't do the right things about stretching, exercising. So we already come compromised. And therefore, we have designed an intervention mechanism that we call lifestyle design architecture. Why? We feel that the only way in which you are going to make sure that you begin to make the necessary improvements that would guarantee you a long life and a healthy life is to use a design process that's going to aid you and serve you on the journey. And in Buddhism, they talk to us that every journey has three requirements. Number one, on that journey, you need a roadmap. In Buddhism, there are 3 steps to achieve nirvana. So those steps, and it starts with individual liberation, and then there is the issue of finding your own independence and wisdom, and then there is what we call indestructible wakefulness, which is where you really can be in the community and really love and be one with the community. So that's the roadmap. We want to get to a place where we can achieve real ultimate health and happiness. So a roadmap is critical. The second thing that's critical is the vehicle. Are you going to be walking? Are you going to be driving? Which kind of pathway are you going to be taking? What vehicle are you going to use? Are you going to take the scenic route? What kind of driving mechanism? And number 3, you need a guide, right? Everybody needs a coach. And why do we need a guide? Even the people who climb Everest, people who are number 1 tennis players in the world all need a coach. Because a coach allows us to be rational without being emotional. Because looking at ourselves in the mirror, we're human beings, we always need feedback. And so a guide allows us to objectively review where we are and make the adjustments that are necessary for that journey. So we have come out with our 5, 6 areas of interventions. So we're going to talk about that and get you to a place of understanding. So our first and most critical part is the transformation that is required. So what is transformation? Transformation is really about your mindset. Some people already are afraid to die. So being afraid to die is really a very challenging mindset because fear in itself is very destructive. It's stressful. Rather, if you accept you're going to die, then it is much easier for you to deal with what it means to be alive. It's a very important concept that you need to understand from a mindset perspective. So if you are living afraid to die, rather than living knowing that you're going to die, it then makes you really deal with life very differently. And therefore, the risks and the way you live life is very different. You know, people argue with me about the price. Well, if you get cancer, you're going to sell your house. So why don't you spend a little money now to make sure you don't get cancer, right? The number one reason why most Americans declare bankruptcy is because of ill health. So it is better for you to spend that money cheaply now and not get cancer than get cancer and then you sell the house because you want to live, right? It is very expensive to reverse some of these deep critical illnesses, and we'll talk about them. So the mindset that is required, it's a mindset that has a couple of attributes, and I'll talk only about two of them today. It's a mindset that has an attribute of being accountable, being responsible. It's a mindset that has integrity, that doesn't lie to yourself, right? And what is integrity at its core? It's really about keeping your word. So if I'm going to say I'm going to exercise, if I'm going to say I'm going to take supplements, the things that I say I'm going to do, because the first deception in life is the deception of self, right? You lie to yourself continuously and you don't get it done, right? That's the biggest deception. It's not the one that other people lie to you. It is the lies that you tell yourself. First of all, you are the only one who knows yourself. And so the transformation to pursue a life of health requires that you have integrity with yourself. What kind of life do I really want to live? And what are the actions am I going to take? And how am I going to hold myself accountable? And also there is a need for authenticity. You need to be authentic to yourself with regard to that mindset, with regard to that transformation and that journey. And on that journey of transformation, we need to enroll other people. It is very difficult to journey on this transformation pathway by ourselves. So we need other people to bring together on the journey. And what is important is to go find those people who have the same mindset like us, because it then makes life very easy. It makes it easy for us to eat the right things, for us not to gossip and cause unnecessary stupid stress, for us to make sure we live in a clean environment, and for us to exercise together, right? Those wellness things. So when we find people who understand those things, then we can enroll them and we can create the community that's going to give us peace. And peace is really critical for this journey to health. The second one, which we call the number one, are those four things we've been talking about. They're the lifestyle drivers. They're the really critical things. We need to understand them. So when we look at the supplements and the products and the treatments we're going to talk about, they are all aligned into that. So let's take nutritional. Most of us don't get the right fats. Most of us do not get the right carbohydrates. We don't even understand carbohydrates. Most of us don't understand proteins. So the right amino acids, the right kind of starches to eat, the right kind of fats to eat. We don't know that. Most of us think we know, we don't. And it is important that you get yourself thoroughly educated on those things so that you actually understand. And when we talk nutrition, there are two other things. The fourth one is fiber, and the fifth one is water. Those are the 5 big nutritional things that we really need to understand. And we need to understand how much of it our body really needs and when, especially as we're growing older. So it is important that for each of them, emotion, we need to know the things that upset us. We need to know how our emotional strength is, and we need to build emotional capacity so we become really strong. As Buddhism teaches us, is that for everything that's going to happen in your life, you need to prepare for it. And I told my children this interestingly, I have prepared for them to die before I die in case it happens, because that's a possibility. And in Buddhism, you're taught to prepare for the things that could happen in life. So you are not surprised, because for most of us, for me, my father and my mother are dead. For most of us, our parents are going to die before us. That's a fact. And you must prepare for it so you can deal with the shock when it happens. If you don't prepare for it and it happens, you pay the emotional price. So for all of those things that we know, I hope some of you don't think some of your parents are going to live forever. They don't. As we also are not going to live forever, we don't. So there are very important things that we should prepare for. And also, if you attach to things that can go away, like your big house in Irvine or your Louis Vuitton bag, those are things that are going to go away. They might go away. So it is important that we don't attach ourselves to things that are trivial and are not lasting. Therefore, we should attach to things that are going to give us really peace. So our emotional strength is very important. So for each of those things, we have, because the emotional things are driven by our hormones, cortisol, DHEA, progesterone, estrogen, all of that. We have supplements to support and create the right balances. In our conversation this week with Dr. Johnson, we had a discussion about hormones, and hormones being the orchestral conductor of life. And therefore, in that whole emotional space, you must ensure that you find your right emotional balance, and therefore, if there are weaknesses in that balance, you supplement to ensure that you keep that right emotional balance. If not, the conductors of life cannot conduct our overall biochemistry. He calls it our biochemistry orchestra, conducted by our hormone systems. Very good language. And then the environment, right? Simple things like when you go into your car after this workshop, you need to put the windows down because your car's been sitting in the sun, and all the stuff that's in your car, it's all manufactured. They're not natural, and they breathe chemicals. And if you go into the car and you sit down, you breathe all of that every day, when you are in the car, you pay the price. So it's always good you open the windows, get some fresh air, and exercise. Always pack away far from the store so you can walk, right? Every opportunity for you to walk is really critical. So make every opportunity. Don't fight to park in front of the store so that you have to take only 2-3 steps. So park far away and give yourself the opportunity. Always use the staircase rather than the elevator. Even if it's 4 or 5 floors, it's good exercise. So every opportunity for you to exercise, take it. Because every time you're lazy, you're going to pay a price for it. So let's look at the third area, which is our number 2, what we call the recommended dietary allowance, which is the RDA. Every time I've shown people the RDA, they're shocked, right? You know, most people would tell me I eat well. Well, okay, do you eat the RDA? It was a shock for me also when I found out. That's when I started supplementing. There is no way. First of all, I don't really like food that much. I like only certain things to eat. And therefore, the only way I can get the complete set of nutrients that the body requires is to supplement. I said nutrients, I didn't say calories. So most of our food in America is made of calories, not of nutrients. And therefore, supplementation is really critical. The second reason why supplementation is important is that most of us, our gut architecture in terms of digestion and absorption is not very good. So you want to make sure that you're supplementing. For example, when my results came back, in spite of the fact that I've been taking enough vitamin D, I was still low on vitamin D. So I've been supplementing with the 50,000 therapeutic units for 1 week on, 1 week off to bring my vitamin D, which is a very, very critical, well, as the doctor educated me this week, vitamin D, even though it's called a vitamin, is actually a hormone. And it is a very fundamental hormone that's required for a lot of things, and for women, bone architecture and other things. So finding the right level for you to supplement for vitamin D is really critical, and you need to make sure you do that. So we can go through all of the RDAs, and the RDAs consist of minerals, or we call them micronutrients, or vitamins and minerals. And it is important that all those minerals, you have them in the right amount. Since I started taking magnesium with my melatonin, I sleep like a baby. I didn't know I could sleep that well. And one of our workers walked in here the other day and said, I have problems sleeping. He bought the magnesium, and the next day he's like, what? I can't believe I slept so well, right? Sleep is a critical thing for all of us. And so if you're not sleeping well, make sure you get that. The third area is clinical imbalances. Clinical imbalances. When I look at clinical imbalances, I think that these are what we call strong and weak signals that God gave us to be aware of what's going on in our body. Unfortunately, most of what goes wrong in our body, we are not aware, right? It's like if you drive an expensive car, the service warning light comes on for you to service the car, right? Or like the petrol thing comes up and say refuel. And I'm still thinking, well, I can drive 50 more miles. You know, I'm one of those crazy people. I will drive until it says 5 more miles. Then I go get gas, which is very dangerous. But you can't do that with your health, right? You can't be driving your body to the extreme before you fix it. So if you take your car for service every 5,000 miles, you should take your body for service also every year. That just makes sense, because you want to go check and see how is my body doing, because you want your body to be driving without breaking down. So when we look at our interventions, we actually call it a service manual, right? So this is the service guide for your body. Every year, go check and see, is everything running well? It's like an old car now. My car is over 60 years old, right? So the service requirements are more than when I was 10 years old, right? So this is a 62-year-old car. This car requires a lot of oil change. And if I go to Pep Boys, I even buy some optimizers to really boost the car, right? For those old cars, you have to put extra things to boost. So as my body is growing older, I need more, better oil, better fuel, right? Better performance to ensure that my clinical imbalances. 3 years ago, when I first ran, for people who may have watched my video this week with Dr. Johnson, my kidney numbers were falling, which is our kidney flow rates. My kidney flow rates were around 40, which for a black person is a very bad thing, because when your kidney flow rates get to 10, you actually go on dialysis. Typically, they should be in the 100, 100, or 130. So over the last 3 years, I've done stem cells. I've been on this journey. I have taken my supplements. And when I last ran my blood biomarkers, my kidney is in top good shape. So it is possible to pay attention and to do the reversals that are critical for our health. What are the treatments that we do? So we do treatments in clinic, at home, and also online. Those online treatments will be things like consulting, advice. Dr. Yi would provide some psychiatric guidance and support for people who need that support for this journey. In clinic, we provide a lot of IV therapy. We also provide treatment for neural performance using the Evoke machine, especially for women who have who are menopausal and who are not on hormone replacement therapy, it's important that they pay attention to their cardiovascular, but also into their memory architecture because of the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. So those are really critical things you need to pay attention to. And then number 5, we have what we call protocols. So our protocols are actually in 3 areas. We have protocols for prevention. What is prevention? Prevention is when you have run your genetics and you know that there are certain underlying deficiencies that you inherited which may not be showing up already. So you want to go on a preventive strategy for those. The other thing that we have is reversal. For example, I just gave you my kidney example. So if you run your biomarkers and it shows that there are areas where you have some depletion or you have been diagnosed with a particular disease, then we can put you on a protocol for reversal, which would take a couple of years because any signs of clinical imbalances takes between 10, 20, 30 years to show up. And therefore, to reverse it does not take 2 weeks. It takes 2, 3, 4 years to reverse things. Why? Because of this big issue here. We have to change your mindset. Because it is one mindset that took you to become ill. You need a different kind of mindset to reverse yourself out of that illness. So at the critical transformation required is how you look at life. And if you are not going to make that change, then you're going to waste a lot of money doing a lot of silly things that will not be impactful. You have to change your mindset as to how you look at life and how healthy you want to be. The last one is optimization. So for example, I'm taking NAD, and it is really interesting that as I take NAD, I'm now either perhaps 4 or 5 treatments in, I can feel this fundamental shift. Like Dr. Yu was saying, actually my vision has become so clear. I used to wear glasses, but I noticed that about 6 months ago, a year ago, I stopped wearing glasses. But it's like my vision is actually getting better in the last couple of months that I've been on NAD. So NAD, what is NAD as one of our optimization treatments? NAD is an optimizer for mitochondrial function, right? As we grow older, most of us begin to suffer from fatigue and tiredness. And that fatigue and tiredness actually comes from the underlying mitochondrial dysfunction that comes with aging. And so NAD goes to begin to address, it's almost like what we call, it's a high-powered impact antioxidant. It detoxifies the cell, removes all the bad things, and the cells can almost feel themselves. So I feel that with my vision, I feel that with my strength, and I feel that with my performance. So we have solutions for optimization, which would include NAD. We haven't started yet with our peptides, also with poly-MVA, which is a 5 times powerful antioxidant, and most of these are IV therapies. Again, just to confirm, we have reversal and we have prevention. So the 3 protocols that we encourage patients to take on is prevention, which requires that we do the full diagnosis and everything for you to understand where you are, what you inherited from your genetics, what your clinical biomarkers are, and what are the things you need to reverse. We have a reversal as a strategy based on the prescriptions of sickness or things that you've been diagnosed with. And then on top of that, you can put optimization. So people ask me the question, is NAD or optimization for everybody? Yes, it is. So if you're doing prevention and you want to accelerate it, you put optimization on top of prevention. If you're doing reversal and you want to accelerate, you put optimization on top of reversal. That way you achieve your results much faster. So that was what I wanted to talk about today. So when we talk about lifestyle design architecture, it's really an intensive look at the interventions and how we're going to design and incorporate that into our lives and ensure that we can achieve a great sense of well-being. Thank you. That's all I was going to discuss today. And are there any questions? Any questions? No? Everything good? Thank you, Mike. Bye-bye. So I'll answer questions online if you want to send me some questions, and we'll look at them, okay? Thank you. Bye now. Thank you.